Hey, what's up, fam? Back hot and heavy again with the fairy tale chapter. After last week, I knew it was just going to roll more into intensity. So obviously, last week we had the reveal of the fire dragon god Ignia, the legitimate son of Igniel, and now you have this son versus stepson thing going on between him and Natsu, and we know his goal is he wants to fight Natsu to the death. Essentially, he wants to pretty much force him to get powerful enough that they can, get in a brawl until there's one man standing until the loser is Ash. And he obviously doesn't want to just give him a power up so they can fight. But he is now giving him a taste of what he could achieve, and just to see what that level can be like. He's definitely scheming. He definitely has something going on. He's trying to lay out that level of breadcrumbs, and there's part of it that I think is revealed in this chapter, and why I think he specifically did this. So obviously he meets up and he's talking about he is Igniel's son. Natsu doesn't believe him, and there was a lot of topic discussion I saw from people talking about how they didn't know how he could have been Igniel's son. How did Igniel have a son? Never mention him. Why wasn't he ever mentioned? What's going on? And there was a lot of questioning just in general, but then I think a lot of negative questioning, like they didn't think it made sense. And I think some people need to remember there's a difference between like something set up to be a surprise. Obviously, they're going to explain it, and then when something is like later revealed, it just doesn't make sense. And look, the chapter actually happened, and it was explained directly on because he's talking about how Natsu was talking about how Igniel's a pure dragon. He'd never transformed to a human, and Ignia explains, all dragons can transform to an extent. Obviously, Merphobia can, and I've known this should make sense given the fact that when Wendy encountered Zirconia back in the Grand Magic Games, that she was surprised that dragons can use magic, because the dragon power has always seemed like its own source, like it's always seemed different. Like you remember in like Edelus when clearly dragon magic, just having the dragon aspect on them, kind of made it have its own special uniqueness. As well as when Face went off, the dragons were still fine. Obviously, Acnologia wasn't, because he's a dragon slayer he's a dragon through being a dragon slayer, and he's above all kind of human dragon hybrid. He's also a raw magic dragon, so no magic around. I hate him especially hard. But it's important to note that dragons in this now knowing, so we also get a little bit of dragon lore. Dragons don't form families, they have a breeding season, and after they breed, the mothers raise the dragons straight on. So Ignil actually never knew Ignia. He just knew, somewhere out there he has an offspring. So that makes sense, and that also explains why he grew to really like Natsu, and he talks about how he grew to love a person, and he kind of got that fatherly feeling for him. So that actually really ties really well into what we know, the relationship from Igniel and Natsu. And I did a video recently on just kind of like going over Natsu's growth and character, and I think this actually ties well into it when you think about it, because just the way that Igniel was, and how much that influenced Natsu overall. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go check it out. It's pretty long, but it's pretty detailed. Goes pretty far into Natsu's character development and whatnot. But it also is important, and why I note that, because Ignia holds a lot of character for Natsu in this, and I'll kind of get further into that near the end of the video when we're finish kind of just recapping what happened and just getting into discussion. But he talks about how because he never really he had a father, but he never really had a dad. He never really had somebody he saw as a father figure. So he didn't really care when Igniel died. 400 years ago, when Acnologia was just slaughtering every dragon he could find, a handful of dragons escaped to Giltina, and then the 5 of them eventually rose up to the level of the dragon gods. And he says that they surpassed Acnologia. I don't believe that. I think he's being a little bit cocky here. I mean, even if they got each to like a level above him, or at least like above him, he would be able, in a 1v1, he'd be able to just eat their attacks and then close that level and then just get above them, because the unfairness of a raw magic dragon, as well as the space between time and power. Acnologia, there's no way that any of these guys would be able to fight him. But now he's upset because he wanted to be the one to kill Acnologia, not to avenge Ignia, but to test his own power. And I think this scene is really important because when he's talking about that, you can see him kind of, his fists shake a little bit. And I think that's going to be part of his character maybe later on, because I don't think that he was genuine about that. I think maybe he does have some, maybe some bottled up feelings about, Ignia, and maybe not in general of the fact that that he didn't have a dad, but the idea of if he had a dad, why did he choose Natsu over him? What makes him so much better? And then probably that formed into something to be more of a much more of a emotional problem for him. Maybe he's got like a little bit of a complex about it, like what makes him special, not me, and probably why he kind of hypes himself up a little bit. And now he's just like, well, then I heard Ignia died to Acnologia, and then Acnologia died to a human. And he came to find Natsu, and Natsu's not nearly as powerful as he was. He's like talking about he doubts that he beat him alone. He probably beat him with a bunch of Dragon Slayers. And obviously Natsu's like, yeah, we were a team, we did it together. It was a group effort, and Ignia's just like, that's dumb. That shows like as a group, but if you're not in the group, obviously it's not gonna matter. So he wants to fight him one-on-one, and he just really likes the idea of that. Now they're gonna, the true son of Ignia, by association, obviously he doesn't really, at least as of now, shown care about Ignia, though I still have that theory over him. But he wants to empower Natsu, and if he doesn't do it, he gave him like, the nice little tease of potentially just killing each of his friends. And Natsu, obviously being mad, goes to try and punch him, and Ignia just casually blocks it, doesn't even care. But it is noted here that he talks about his emotions amplify his power, which is, obviously we know about that since his fight with Aragorn, and we saw it again recently within the story when he fought Zareth, and he was able to increase the heat and temperature of his flame to burn away Fairy Heart and time itself. And now he wants to test him to go against Mercfovia, and Mercfovia instead, if he doesn't do it, like if he doesn't kill Natsu's friends to get him out of that enraged state, Mercfovia will, because he's in a straight sense of non-control. But after that point, Ignia just is like, all right, I'm gone, bye, see you later. I actually really like that bit about him, because he shows up, he gives them like a little bit, you get a nice little bit of information, and even a little bit of like dragon lore and dragon, like, what would it be? Not biology, and I'm trying to remember what the correct term, but giving a little bit more on dragons in general, and then just kind of strong arms Natsu into being like, all right, you're gonna have to do it or you're fucked, and then he's just like, bye. I thought that was pretty good, but even then, afterwards, and everyone's like, oh, do you know that guy? He's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. And then, while they're trying to convince him to eat the flames, he's just like, I don't know, I don't like that guy. He seems like a dick. And he obviously realizes that he's got one option, and that's it. But after he eats it, he gets empowered to this intense, pretty far along dragon force where he's got these, scaled arms. He has this black, like, kind of fiery design similar to Ignia's on his arms. He's got more elongated fangs. But most importantly, his fire is what I'm going to assume is black and red. And I'll get to why that's important in a minute. But obviously he, explodes out, throws a punch, knocks Mercfovia down, and Mercfovia is just like gets up. He looks fine, but you can tell he's annoyed. And when Natsu's coming out, he just gets swatted by his tail. Who just like, it was such a quick fight for those moments, because it literally just punches him, gets swatted down, fucking before he even hits the ground. Uses his fire to like shoot himself back up, grabs Mercfovia by the tail and like swings him around like a rope, and just is like whipping him into buildings. And Natsu's just going wild. And this is where I'm very interested in what's going on a, I think, more personal note, because like everyone else is just talking about how like impressive it is, but Natsu, when you look at him, he just doesn't look controlled at all. And Lucy's talking about how the first time ever she's afraid of Natsu's flames. And so now we're how far are we in this video? I don't want it to be too long. We're at 9 minutes, goddamn. So what I really want to know that's important is when I think Mercfovia, or not Mercfovia, Ignia, instead of just kind of like coaxing him into getting more powerful, gave him a power-up, is a lot of people think that the Demon Seed and like all the Etheria stuff and the Dragon Seed are all gone, but they aren't. Because the Dragon Seed was the portion of the book that Zareth pierced. If you go look back at when Zeref shut the book and Natsu grabbed his chest, it's the same place that the quote unquote tumor was that Brandish shrunk in his body. Because obviously when she was defeated, he grabbed the same spot. Or when she undid the shrinking, he grabbed the same spot, and obviously that's when all the E.N.D stuff started to happen. And the book still existed after that point. But my theory and what I think is would make the most sense after the events is after you saw the book messing with Lucy's body is the link went from Zeref to Lucy, and that's why when Zeref died, Natsu didn't die. And that Etherea's power still exists, but maybe it merged back within his body and is more kept down. And the Dragon Seed really is just formed through using Dragon Slayer magic, so it would just reform, it just would restart. And obviously, the more powerful, more you use Dragon Slayer magic, the more it's going to come back up. What I think I keep saying Merciful, what Ignia, I think, gave him like a temporary power up was to maybe like coax those out, because you see on his hands, it doesn't look like the same markings as Ignia, because Ignia is like those black marks on his red scales. It looks much more like a pattern, like those are actually the colors of the scales. With Natsu, it looks like a layer over it, because you see like areas where on his hands where it's just not there. You see it in the portions where he's grabbing and like using attacks, that it's more like streaming on him, where it's like a layer. Like it's just like a layer of just like pure black flame or something, or ash or whatever it could be. And I think that's important, because I think it's his dragon and Ethereus powers layering over each other, and that's partially why he's kind of in this uncontrolled state. Because, like I said, what's important, thinking about the fact that his flames are assuming red, because you look at them and a lot of them they're darker colored and black, is both the way that the anime did the Ignial tattoo flames. And there's a few occasions in Fairy Tail where anime stuff carries over to manga. Like for example, Lucy's key design. They used to be boring normal keys, and then they got crazy cool details in the anime, and then that carried over to the manga. But it's not crazy to believe that they would carry over as well from that scene where Natsu fought Zeref, but also the portion when he gained Ethereus powers, because it was also that same kind of style. He has the that shadow kind of like trail energy around his eyes. He has the same like claws, and it's very similar. And I think it wasn't just to be like, hey, become really powerful and beat this guy. I think it was to jumpstart all these and maybe reawaken that power within Natsu, because now he will progress further with it. It might actually end up kind of driving him to become more powerful, maybe in his subconscious, and he won't realize it. And I think also a way that I think it would make sense by doing this is the fact that he just seems like he's in like a raged berserker mode. And even in times where Natsu is like super pissed, like say like when he fought Gajiel, when he fought Jalal, anything like that, when he was just like veins popping, he's just pissed off. He always did seem like he's in control. But the only time where he just seemed like he wasn't himself was when he had the Ethereus powers, and that's what he kind of seems now. Because when you look at him like swinging around Mercfovia, it doesn't look like Natsu would at least take some precaution to not hurt the people in the town. But here he's swinging this like 100+ foot dragon around where it could easily crush and kill the townspeople. And I'm very curious about that, because it's definitely something that within Fairy Tail that people are not too sure about with Ethereus. Like, is Ethereus power, is it actually gone or not? I still think it's not. I think this is a really good point of it not being there. And I think the bit with Lucy at the end, because she's the only one that feels unnerved by it, because, well, obviously she feels frightened. So there's something unsettling. And I think maybe she's connected to Natsu in a way, because like my whole theory of that she got the link connection to the book over Zeref when she messed with it, and all that black stuff went into her body. And maybe she's kind of not only seeing Natsu, but she's also kind of feeling like his inner self right now, like what his insides are probably going through, like just that rage and emotion that just like want to consume and burn and just become a monster. And I think that's a very interesting thing to bring up also in this, and also within the 100 Years quest, is not only, what's going on with the dragons and Toka and the Dragoneers, but also Natsu in general, because we didn't get a whole lot of resolve with his E.N.D stuff. It looks like we might be getting back to it now, and I think that will add a lot more flavor to it if it also carries the weight of further progression of E.N.D and where exactly it'll go. Because one thing is, if Ignia knew about it and he knew the hype behind E.N.D and he knew that Acnologia was cautious of him, that would be an obvious reason why he would want to kind of jumpstart this and make Natsu as strong as eventually get to as strong as he was, so they could fight. And I'm very curious how that's going to go. And Ignia in general, because of what his relationship with Natsu could turn into. You had this kind of a potential brotherly rivalry, but also at the same time this way that Ignia might be damaged, the way that Natsu might be able to sympathize with him and maybe show off some more of his development of how he feels towards people, because maybe he won't see that Ignia is just a bad guy, but just somebody who's been damaged and who could use some help. Other than that, drop a comment below on what you thought about this chapter. I thought it was super solid, very quick, very fast paced. And I predicted that this was kind of how it was going to go, that we were going to get about the first half of the chapter, Ignia and Natsu talking, because it's important. We needed to know stuff about him. This guy popped out of nowhere. And then it just seemed, like the logical spot halfway in. He gets the power up, he goes and attacks, and you get those first little bits. I'm really looking forward to the next chapter just to see more of what this is capable of. I want to see some big attacks, some big crazy stuff just to get hype on what's going on, and maybe a hint at least further of how Lucy's feeling towards this. Definitely, that's probably how the next chapter will start. But other than that, I really appreciate if you'd befriend the like button, thumbs up the video, befriend the like button and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.